This video is not intended for children. Viewer discretion is advised.
If you haven't already, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Greetings, one and all, and welcome to Seven Kinds of Mischief. I'm your host, Stone Loki, and with me today is the one, the only, the Doctor of Destruction, Adega Outlaw. Hail, brother.
Hail, brother. And guess what?
What?
We need a Skyhorn.
We
RR is a warrior.
We do need a Skyhorn. RR. Welcome to the Warriors of Asgard, and Skull! I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, RR, for joining the Warriors of Asgard. Just a quick announcement, ladies and gentlemen, for the Warriors of Asgard and Loki Army members, we are having a get-together tomorrow at 4 p.m. in a closed-door session Q&A for any of you who are Warriors of Asgard and a member of Loki's personal army.
And the hazing starts after.
Yes, the hazing starts after, but come on in, hang out. It's a Q&A session, so you can ask me anything within reason. Don't start asking me what the last 4 digits of my social security number are, or the first vehicle I ever drove, or the name of my first pet, or any shit like that.
Or where we can find a video of you playing at a bar.
I told everybody what bar. I told everybody what bar it was. So if they can find it, you know, and they're like, "Is this it?" Well, you know, I'll send you a T-shirt or something if you come to me and you're like, "Okay, is this it?" I'm like, okay, here's a T-shirt. Just don't tell anybody. You are now under contract. No, you know, no, what is no information, no, whatever clause. There's now a clause in this. You get the T-shirt, but you can't.
Non-disclosure agreement.
Yes, non-disclosure agreement, NDA. Yes. And Positive Candor says, boom, shakalaka, everyone. Good evening, Positive Candor. Good evening, RR, the newest member of the Warriors of Asgard. Good evening, Purple Valkyrie. The wrench, Purple Valkyrie is here, ladies and gentlemen. And with her tonight riding shotgun is the wrench of wrenches, Chris Persia. Good evening, brother. Mary's Game Room is here. Scrolling. Darth Monkey Orath. Good evening, Luis. Good evening, Luis. Sit room. Hail, brother. How are you doing? Colin P. Smith. Psycho Dwarf 9. Good evening, everybody. If I missed anybody, I'm sorry. Derek McManus. How are you doing, brother? And the Guardian of the Void, Lady Mist, is here. Good evening, Lady Mist. How are you doing tonight? So, we are going to be talking about the Roman Empire and the great emperors and battles of the Roman Empire. Mexican Iron Man is here, free for one and all. What are you being terrorized by? Demi Corn's ANTI SJW SKYHORN.
You know I'm making a new one just for you, Mexican Iron Man. I am going to crack that helmet of yours from the sky above with multiple horns, with more volume, and we're going to make your ears bleed.
Damn, Adega fights dirty. Adega fights dirty. Adega, what did Mexican Iron Man ever do to you?
He's picking on the brown lantern.
Oh!
I am a friend of all lanterns. If I was a lantern, I'd be a blue lantern, which supports all good lanterns.
Nice. I don't remember the blue lantern. I remember the yellow, the yellow.
Blue is the lantern of hope. And when combined, especially with the green lanterns become immensely powerful.
Really? I knew that worked
Like
with the red
tenfold, yes.
The red ones too. The red ones rage. I remember that.
Yeah, blue is hope though, and it usually doesn't go too well with rage. It will work, especially a dual wielder. There's been a couple times when the green and a red have combined.
Wow. Well, by Green Lantern's light, no evil shall escape my sight.
Or Mexican thongs.
Oh, all of Valhalla waits in anticipation from Chris Bergia. And good evening, Jedi Bill. Hail, brother. How are you doing, Jedi Bill? 797. And Darth Hastur. Good evening. Buy now new anti-evil Adega special headsets. See here now. And we've already gone off the rails, folks. Oh, shit.
There are no rails in Valhalla.
No, there are no rails in Valhalla.
Maybe agendas, but that's about it.
Guys, in case you didn't know, I don't know if you were watching the morning show, but if anybody doesn't know, if you have been watching the Farscape episodes, send me an email at stone_Loki and let me know you want to be in the drawing for Winona. Robert Pearson has donated a beautiful replica of the Pulse Pistol Winona, Crichton's Pulse Pistol. If you want to be entered into that contest, send me an email at stone_Loki at hotmail.com and I'll enter you into the contest. And we will have a drawing next Thursday, which will be the last of the Farscape episodes for some time. I don't know when they will be back, but Mexican.
Here's a better idea. Why don't we have Loki turn his headset off for a second? All of your entries come in next month, okay? And then, I promise I won't put mine in. It won't be the only one in there, and chances are I won't be the one to win it. So, no, that's a really cool gun.
That is apparently how Mexican Iron Man is going to protect himself from the Valhalla Skyhorn.
All right, we're going to get into a little bit of healthcare stuff. There is something called a pyroclastic nerve conduction, where there are vibrations conducted through the bone up into the skull. I can make a Skyhorn so loud that it will vibrate every bone in your body, and you can put on all the earmuffs you want. It's still going to crack that skull of yours.
Oh, the dastardly doctor is what we should. And for $399.99 or 50% discount, enter code Adega sucks. Oh Lord, Mexican Iron Man. Oh shit! Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant, you guys. I can't wait to see what Adega comes up with next, and I can't wait to see how Mexican Iron Man is going to try and fight it.
I'm hard at work on the brown note. If I can get that one together with the Skyhorn, we're in business.
Darth Monkey Arrest is playing Fall Guys right now. Is that the game Az has been playing? DMO, is that the game Az has been playing? I gotta check out this game. Everybody's playing Fall Guys.
I have never heard of that. I know the Fall Guys show, but never heard of Fall Guys.
Yeah, it's like a team game where you run like an obstacle course and you have like a soccer match. And it's cool. Az has been playing it. I've been like, I don't know.
I thought he was sick.
He is. He has been sick. He hasn't been playing it lately. It's what he was playing before he got sick. Big shout out to Az tonight, folks. Az, if you're listening, I don't know if you are, but we love you, brother. And we hope you get well very soon. We hope you get well very soon, brother. Valhalla just lost a friend, former family member, Worky. Him and his brother Keith were community members before Valhalla ever existed back in the day. And Keith just lost his brother Worky. Worky was a really good guy. Loved Star Trek. Loved the Ferengi. Pretty much taught me how to talk like a Ferengi. And really, really great guy. Absolutely wonderful guy. Valhalla's heart goes out to Keith and his family. Anti-active Adega Evil Outlaw headsets guaranteed to work. Order today. Okay, bye. And yes, Purple Lady, hugs for Az. We love you, Az. No, positive candor. I will not be getting Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I have looked at the game. I have looked at what they are doing with the game. And no, it's going to be exactly like the Spartan one. And I want to tell you guys something. When I saw the Spartan Assassin's Creed Odyssey, I paid $129 to get the special edition with the little statue. That game sucked. I hated that game. I did not like it. It was not what they sold it to be. And when you run up to a guy and you fight him for 20 minutes and you haven't taken down one speck of his health, you know there's a problem. This was not a glitch. This is the game dynamics they set forth, is that you have to have ultra gear, and this is a single player game. It has all the mechanics of a MMO in a single player game. If I want to play an MMO, I will go and I will buy an MMO and I will play that MMO. I do not want MMO mechanics in my single player game. I do not want to be told, hey, if you spend $39.99 more dollars to buy these crystals, you can upgrade your guy. Well, I want to upgrade him naturally. I want to play a game, and I want to have fun playing a game. Yeah, Chris Berger, Holy Toledo, 129. Yeah, $129.99. This is not something I want in a $129.99 version of a game that I buy, where I get to find out, oh, I need to go and I need to spend another $40 on upgrade crap to stay competitive in a single player game. I'm not going to do it. I like the way they've got it looking. Yes, I like the way it looks, but if I'm not going to play it and I'm going to be frustrated at it and it's got the mechanics of an MMO, I don't want to play that in a single player game. So I will not be getting Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I wish it was a better game. I wish they had gone in a different direction, but that is not what they are doing. So, Adega, what do you got for tonight, brother?
Well, I wanted to start at one of, well, it kind of crosses over into Valhalla just a little bit. Going to, after Julius Caesar had set up the new empire, it wasn't too long when they started finding out these Celts were pretty pesky people. And they set up legions into Germany and got to the Rhine River and kind of settled things down there. But as we know, they called them Celtic tribes.
The Germanians, yes.
Yeah. They didn't think too kindly of it. There was one guy, I'm trying to find his name. He was captured, and he was one of them, and they took him to Rome and raised him as a Roman. Oh, I can't find his name. Either way, this guy, when he was old enough, they gave him basically a title of, it was a Roman knight. They thought he was awesome. And they sent him up into Germany because they figured, he was a liaison running back and forth from Rome and Germany, dealing with the tribes, keeping the peace on everything, and they didn't really realize. That might have been the one. I'm trying to find it. I want to be accurate.
Arminius? Colin seems to think that's the one too, Arminius.
Okay. Well, then if it is, it is. But oh, yeah. Yep. He's the guy. I just got it verified here with my stuff. I like this guy. He was pretty devious. Now, I got to ask you a question because I didn't know this until I started researching this. You know, you see it on these shows, these TV shows, and these Romans would carry this symbol. And Alude, or Alude was the guy who lost the first one. It's Aquila, or an eagle, the standard that each legion would carry with them. It was like a mark of honor. It was more of a big deal to them than their flag.
Yes.
And some of these Celts had captured one.
That's a really interesting. Okay, there are historians who believe that those tribes were set up by Caesar himself. Set up by Julius. That the standard, someone still right before Julius came into Rome and took over, his standard was stolen. And there are people that believe that he did this to excite his troops and to make them believe that it was the Senate who set this up, that the Senate paid the horde, the tribes, to do this to disgrace Caesar, because Caesar couldn't come back without his standard, and that they were trying to prevent him from going back to Rome with his army.
Well, when they took it, it was a serious blow to a lot of military leaders. At the time when these things started, it was started in the year BC 17, and around the year 9, Augustus Caesar was now in charge. And he spent 4 years sitting building up the military presence in there. They called it Germania Inferior and Germania Superior across the Rhine River. They had Inferior pretty much locked down. And our good friend, the double agent, spent a lot of his time planning out an insurrection.
Yes.
Yes, I'm getting to that. Absolutely. That's the one. This is the very one. And so the legions that you just were talking about was the 17th, 18th, and 19th Legion, basically 30,000 men that were going to march up into the western part of Germany, specifically because our good friend, the double agent, said, this is where you need to go. And it was a trap.
Yep.
It was a very ingenious trap. When they got so far with the rains and everything else, most of you have seen images of Germany, and at the time it was even more so. Heavy forests, small canyon, locked these soldiers in there to where they couldn't retreat. They were basically, it was a 7-mile train of soldiers, and they were split in two by hit and run tactics. These guys made barricades up on top of these hills and were throwing spears, shooting arrows, and a few of them would dart down and kill as many Roman soldiers as they could and then ran back up. This went on for 4 days. Eventually the men started to retreat, and almost every single Roman was killed in this. And all of their Aquila, those little eagles, were taken.
Yep.
And that's where the little line came in about his legions. They lost them all. It was the single biggest defeat that Rome had ever faced up until that point. It was demoralizing to the entirety of Rome, all of them. And it took them quite a while before they could recover from that. It was a significant blow. They eventually did come back and recovered most of those eagles, but it was still such a blow that Germany was never taken completely. They never did. And I gave you a map earlier. It shows you how far that in the most prosperous years of Rome is when that map was completed. It still didn't have all of the English Isles, and it didn't have all of Germany. They just never could do it.
No. And to kind of add to what Adega was talking about, the reign of Marcus Aurelius lasted from 80 AD to 161 AD. He was one of the longest reigning emperors, and he was a philosopher, but he was also a warrior. He reigned in one of the most warlike periods in Roman history. And I'd like to read you guys a passage. It says, brought up by Stoic philosophers, high-minded, aesthetic, and self-sacrificing, Marcus Aurelius seemed destined to become Rome's true philosopher king. Tragically, his reign was filled with almost continuous warfare, and he spent much of it fighting. Born in Spain in 121 to an aristocratic Roman family, Marcus was chosen as Hadrian's sole heir when he was only 6. Antonius Pius, the next elderly emperor, adopted him in 138 AD. Marcus became consul at the age of 18, and then Caesar's junior emperor. Lucius Verus, 9 years younger, and his adopted brother. When he became emperor in 161, Marcus persuaded the Senate to make Verus co-Augustus alongside him. Almost immediately, Parthia invaded Armenia. Lucius went east, and the Parthians were repelled, mostly by the governor of Syria. Cassius and Versus, preferring the fleshpots of Antioch and Setaplion, some of these names I can't say, and Seleucia on the Tigris were sacked in 165 AD. The total destruction of the latter, a Hellenistic city, was thought to have aroused divine wrath, manifest in a terrible plague that the victorious troops brought back with them. This ravaged the empire, weakened the army, and overshadowed Verus's triumph. An unexpected German invasion across the Danube, which reached Aquila in northeast Italy in 168, triggered a financial and military crisis. Marcus armed gladiators and slaves and went north with Verus. Lucius Verus' sudden death in 169 AD did not affect operations, in which Marcus showed himself a very competent general despite having no earlier military experience. This man should have been a philosopher. He should have been able to unite Rome and bring about a golden age to the Roman Empire, an age of peace, an age of splendor, an age of virtue, and instead, he spent the entire time at war because this was the Roman Empire at the time. He could not be what he wanted to be. He had to be what they needed him to be. When people say, those who seek power do not need to rule, it is those who have power thrust upon them. This is a man who had power thrust upon him, and he did everything to protect Rome and grow Rome, but that's not what he really wanted to be doing. He fought the good fight because he had to. This is what was thrust upon him, was war, and he did it well. This is also the person that is depicted in Ridley Scott's Gladiator film, the old emperor, Marcus Aurelius. And RR, that is beautiful. Marcus Aurelius was the closest thing to Plato's philosopher king the world has ever known. His meditations are a textbook manual on how to live a virtuous life. And they depicted him wonderfully in Ridley Scott's Gladiator. That's one of the things that I loved, because he was one of my favorite of the Roman empires. So when I saw him and I saw that they were using him, I was like, man, I really hope they make him right, because this wasn't what he wanted in his life. He did not want to be out on the battlefield. He was undefeated on the battlefield. It's not what he wanted. It's not the life he wanted. He did it, though, because that's what his responsibility to Rome was. You either step up to the plate and you do what you have to do, or you sit there and don't do anything.
If I remember right, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was under his rule where he started solidifying and making the rules of governorship outside of Rome more better defined. They
Yes.
had set up, the local governments allowed people to keep their traditions and everything, and so long as there was a Roman garrison, but it seemed like things were much better organized under his rule as well.
Yes, he was in the fall of the Roman Empire as well. Colin P. Smith.
That was actually considered one of the heights of Rome, even though, Rome was always at war. There was insurrections, there was, invasions, there was all kinds of things that were always pitted against the empire. But when you got something that large without the communication or travel capabilities, there's always someone somewhere thinking they could take advantage of or do better than or felt slighted by the empire.
Yes. And I'm trying to remember. Okay. We talked about the Raven last week. The
Yes.
little bridge that came off the war against Carthage would eventually be Rome's downfall as well. I'm not saying Carthage took out Rome. What I'm saying is the main reason why Rome was able to beat Carthage, because Carthage was much larger at the time. They had Spain, they had large parts of Italy, they had parts of Africa. Carthage was huge, but they were a mercantile society. So there was a lot of trading. That's how they kept everything up. The armies, though, that hold on one second. The armies that they had were all mercenary armies, and they weren't paid well. And they didn't get to celebrate when they had a victory. If they won a major victory, no one in Carthage gave a shit. However, if they failed, everybody in that army was punished. They were whipped, they were executed, they were punished, they were locked up for failure. So there was no reward if these mercenary armies claimed victory over their enemies. And Rome didn't have a fleet. See, Carthage had this huge fleet, this huge mercantile fleet. So they were ready. They knew how to fight on the water. Rome's armies were a dedicated land army. They didn't fight at sea. They fought on the ground. So what they did was they had captured a Carthaginian merchant vessel and they recreated it. They made one themselves and they made more and more and more. And then they came up with the Raven, which is what we talked about last week. It is a bridge that had like a spike at the end of it. And they would drop that onto another ship and then send their troops over to fight in hand-to-hand combat. So their land fighting force was fighting the same battle they always fought. They were just fighting ship to ship. They would move their forces from one ship to another and one ship to another and on and on and on while they were fighting. And Colin P. Smith, oddly enough, that film did so badly at the box office that the historical epic went out of fashion, ironically, until Gladiator, which was essentially the same story. Yes. You want to read that, Adega?
Lost history fact, and it probably has. Oh, I shouldn't read ahead. His actual name was Marcus Aurelius Mexicanus, and much of his glory was due to his regular intake of carne asada. Don't forget to tonight to order Mexican Iron Man family tacos.
Picked ironically by the Green Lantern.
They better be dang good tacos to be able to steal someone's name like that.
Yeah.
All right. Here's one of the big ones for, especially for the Christians, and later to become the Catholics, which then divided up. The Battle of Milvain Bridge. Most people know bits and pieces about this one. Basically, Rome had been split in two because, let me see, the beginning of the 4th century, which is 312, the Roman Empire was gradually imploding. Factions, fighting, and civil war had become endemic. In 306, Constantine decided he was emperor at York, and Maxentius claimed the imperial title in Rome. Well, of course, you got two big egos, and they couldn't handle that. So Constantine decided he was going to go and resolve the problem. Maxentius thought he was setting up a death trap for Constantine. He had come to an old Roman bridge. He disassembled it to make it narrow, thought he would be able to bottleneck Constantine and his forces there and take him out. Well, the night before the battle, Maxentius made a big mistake. He camped on the wrong side of the bridge. He was on the side that would need to retreat. And Constantine had his famous dream where he saw the sun, where he was a sun worshiper beforehand. And in his dream, he claimed to see a cross that overcame the light of the sun. And depending on the historian, some people think it was just his military genius, some think it was Maxentius's foul up, and some people think it was divine. And it could be all three. But when he woke in the morning, he commanded, we're talking about Constantine, all of his soldiers to paint crosses on their shields. And here's where the mistakes of Maxentius came in. They sent out their chariots, which is normally no big deal. And if they get into trouble, they can turn around, regroup, come back at him. But he was so close to that bridge on the wrong side that when his first initial chariot attack went, they mixed up. They were colliding with each other. They didn't have a way to retreat like they normally do. So it completely failed. Like I said, normally it would be no big deal. They could regroup and come back at him again, but they didn't have the room to do that. And then Constantine and his forces came upon him like a wild wind. Maxentius decided, well, we got to get across the bridge. Instead of bottlenecking Constantine's forces, his own forces got bottlenecked, got wiped out. At that point, it was only a matter of 2 more days. Constantine made it to Rome, took Rome, and turned all of it into a Christian empire, which seems very ironic, or, it doesn't fit a Christian empire. It shouldn't be that way, but that's what he did. And after that, we see the development of Christianity take off. But it was all because of several different blunders and a dream of Constantine. It was a huge, huge change in the fortunes of Christianity. And in some ways, it was a huge change for the Roman Empire, because that plus a previous war and one that would come later had significantly depleted all their forces. They were starting to limp at this point. It became more and more difficult from this time out to maintain the empire.
I am pulling up an image here, guys. Give me just 1 second, because I don't want to. I don't want to just pull up the internet. This is very hard to find. Let's see here, because you have to pretty much put it in a very weird way, and this picture is going to be small, so I'm going to do my best to enlarge it. One of the things we have talked about on the show before is how the Romans fought, the formations that they used. Hopefully I don't get kicked off when I do this. I know that's small, but that's as big as I can get it. What you are looking at was called the Acer triplex, and it was the Roman line that they used in battle. And it was called, it translates to the triple line. And according to Polybius, the Greek historian who was held hostage in Rome in 167 BC, the Roman army of the Republic fought in 3 lines determined by age and experience. The first line consisted of the youngest soldiers, the hastati, literally spearmen. Behind those men came the late 20 and 30s soldiers in the prime of their life, called principals. In the rear were the veterans, the triatari, the third line. All lines wore bronze helmets. The richer ones wore a mail cuirass. And back then, you had to supply yourself with your gear. So you might have gotten a spear, you might have gotten a weapon and a helmet, but your armor was determined by how much money you had, how much money your family had to spend. And a lot of times, with the richer families, the armor carried down from father to son. So if your father fought in the Legion, then he would pass down his armor to you. They wouldn't buy new armor. Buying new armor was a luxury for newly wealthy men. Those are the ones who had to buy their armor. Everybody else usually fought in a leather cuirass. So all carried a long cylindrical shield, obviously, from what we can see. Rome infantrymen were primarily swordsmen. So while the front line had shield and spear, the lines behind them would have a short Roman blade. And they used this blade to fight over the shield. So when they were in a shield wall like this, their swords would come up over the shield and out of the guard and then pop back in as fast as possible. That way you were always protected in the shield wall. And that is a term that we all know because we've all used that on this.
There you go.
Or shield wall. This was their phalanx. This is the fighting style they learned from the Spartans. This is the fighting style that Vikings would eventually use in a different way, is the shield wall. And there's a reason why this worked for as long as it did. This worked for 2,000 years, over 2,000 years, this fighting style, this protective shield wall, almost like a turtle, won wars. And it was the men and women that learned it, that fought in it, that knew it better than anybody else, because it was almost unstoppable. What you had to do was flank them with heavy cavalry from both sides. That is the only thing that could get past this formation.
Until catapults and trebuchet.
Yes, until catapults and trebuchets. But the Romans had that. It's just not a lot of other people had that. I don't know if you remember the scene in Gladiator when he says, "On my signal, unleash hell." They had all kinds of shit. They were shooting fire into the sky. They were shooting what are they? Almost like a giant. My Lord, I'm blanking. I can't think of the name.
That's what happens when you drink too much.
Yes. My God, it's not a catapult. It fires a bolt.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. It's like a giant crossbow.
Yes.
Crossbow.
Crossbow. Thank you. And that decimated. They sat back at long range and decimated their opponents. And then once their opponents were weakened, if they hit the line, that was it. And Psychodorf 9 says, a ballista. Thank you. Ballista. Yes. Colin P. Smith and Psychodor 9 for the money shot. Yes, the ballista. The ballista. Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to get hit by one of those.
No, not at all. And it's a beautiful strategy. If any of you have ever played Warhammer, I'm a huge Warhammer fan. The old world, not the 40K, but the old world. And I was super proficient as the Empire of Man. The reason why is I would pelt my opponents at long range and let them come to me and wait. I would pelt them with catapults. I would pelt them with cannons. I would pelt them with the rockets and sit there and wait for them to come to me and then unleash hell. I would have a line of riflemen waiting with a small contingent of soldiers behind them, just in case they got near my long range artillery. That was my bread and butter.
Nah, you're just cheating.
Derek McManus, I played a lot of Warhammer back in the day. Yes. It was a hard thing. It was a hard style to beat. It was a very hard style to beat until Chaos showed up. Then I was fucked. But back to the Roman Empire. This triple line worked up until the fall of Rome, which we'll talk about next week. Because they had Go ahead. They had a disciplined army. They had a disciplined, trained army up until the end when they were using mercenaries just like Carthage did. They had a very disciplined army that worked together in battle.
It does make a huge difference.
Yeah.
Before we go, because we got just 10, 15 minutes left. You mentioned last week, and I didn't study it, and I'm sure you know better, the idea of the Colosseum and the Gladiators.
Yes.
When did that start? Why did it start? Who participated? I know when the Christians came along, and there's some before that, people like to come and watch people get eaten by bears and lions and various other ways of
the great
disemboweling and stuff. But yeah,
because
they had Colosseums all over the empire. It wasn't just in Rome. They put them even in England.
Yes. Give me just a second because I want to make sure I get the beginning of this right.
And while he's looking it up, make sure you order your family recipe Mexican Iron Man tacos today. And perhaps you too can win a pair of those useless headsets.
Useless headsets. I do believe that Adega Outlaw has called down the thunder, Mexican Iron Man.
It will come.
God, I should know exactly. There it is, Sporting Games. Give me just a second. Like I said, this giant manual that I have sitting in my lap is...
he calls it a manual.
They were... Okay, so the gladiatorial combats were funerary in origin. Hence, those names numera, rewards, sacrifices. The spirits of the dead were thought to appreciate human blood. So captives or slaves were set to fight each other to the death at aristocratic funerals. That is how the Colosseum started. It was a way of honoring the dead with blood. A lot of their religious beliefs involve blood. There is a scene in the series Rome where this woman is standing and she is praying to this idol, and she's chanting over and over again, and they literally cut a cow's neck above her, and the blood just drenches her, and she's drenched in blood. And that is like saying, In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. To them, anyway. The very first recorded gladiatorial event was in 264 BC when 3 pairs of gladiators fought to the death in the forum of the cattle market for the funeral of Marcus Ionius Brutus. Over the next 200 years, Roman nobles competed to put on ever more lavish events. And in 65 BC, Julius Caesar displayed 250 pairs of gladiators at funeral games for his father, who had died 20 years before. This extravagance, which the Senate tried to limit, was an attempt to win votes. For as Juvenal later noted, the mob cares only for bread and circuses. Finally, the emperor became the main, often sole provider of the games for Rome, frequent public holidays. While in other cities, local magnates continued to provide gorely expensive games involving gladiators, like Adega was just talking about, paired with wild animals. Games were often staged as part of ceremonies to do with the imperial cult in the provinces or with triumphs in Rome under the emperors. It is an event born in death. It was a way for them to honor their dead. And eventually that changed and became a way to honor the living, which was the emperors. Some of the emperors were insane in nature about the games. So all they wanted to do was go to the games and watch people get killed. Obviously, this was not something that the former emperor that we talked about earlier, Marcus Aurelius, approved of, because death was his business. He lived his life fighting wars. Why would he want to come back to Colosseum and watch more death? And yes, Colin P. Smith, some Colosseums could even be flooded so naval battles could be staged. And Derek McManus, yes, lions apparently like to eat Christians.
Tasty. Now, there are movies, and like I said, I haven't studied this part of Rome, but like the Gladiator, where there are certain honors bestowed upon champions.
Yes.
They had to win so many times to be released from slavery, or whether or not they pleased the people, or was that a real thing?
Yes, 10 times. And they were, and like depicted in Gladiator, they were awarded with a wooden blade. 10 fights, 10 battles in the arena. If you survived your 10 battles, you were released and you were no longer a slave. And you could earn money and you gained your citizenship in Rome. Citizenship in Rome was a big thing. If you were a citizen of Rome, you had access to all kinds of things where if you weren't, you just didn't have access to them. You could start life as a slave, win your 10 battles, become rich because you would gain money. You will often see the people throw things into the arena after a battle. That's yours to keep. That's yours to do with as you please. They hired gladiators as breeding stocks for daughters because they wanted them to have good, strong sons. This wasn't something they shied away from. This wasn't something they looked down on. It was just life. There were slaves and there were citizens. And if you were a slave in the arena and you won your 10 fights and you gained your wooden sword, you became a citizen of Rome. They honored you. In the movie Gladiator, you see Maximus's fight with Tigress of Gaul. He became a citizen of Rome. That armor he was wearing, he had that made specifically for him. That's not something that his owner had made. That's something he had made because he didn't stop being a gladiator just because he won 10 rounds. He went back into the arena and did it again and again, and they paid him. Rome paid him to fight. So if you were that good and you came back to do it again, you could get rich very, very quickly. All depending on what you did with your money. All depending on what you wanted to do with your life.
Kind of reminds me of one of my wife's ancestors. We visited his gravesite. He was fought for the North in the Civil War, and his duty time expired. He re-enlisted 3 times. Yeah. And considering all the people that had died, he must have been a dang good shot, and knew how to dodge bullets, because he made good money at it. And I don't know why anyone would, other than for the honor of the country. That was a horrendous war, but being a gladiator, it amazes me that someone would go back and do that.
Yeah,
especially for sport. But like you said, there's a lot of money, prestige. You got your citizenship, stud fees,
betting and gambling.
Right.
Yeah, betting, the betting and gambling was a big thing. And Colin P. Smith, yes, you could end up like Kirk Douglas. Gladiators, Derek McManus makes a good point. Gladiators were not prisoners as such. They lived in compounds with accommodation, training facilities, and so on. They could send out for food, wine, etc. Yes, and that included women. That is something that is touched on in the Gladiator movie. What do you want? Spaniard, wine, women, boy. They got what they wanted. The gladiators were the rock stars. Someone said that earlier. Sit-room, yes, the gladiators were the rock stars of Rome. If you were good, and they knew you were good, pretty much got whatever you wanted. You could live in the lap of luxury for the rest of your life, doing whatever you wanted, because you were that damn good. It was all a matter of, are you going to stay, or are you going to go off and retire? Because they didn't care what happened after that. If you want to go and retire, go and retire.
Cheaper than college, and in some ways less painful.
And yes, the wooden sword was a Rudius. Yes.
Wow, that's amazing.
And Purple Valkyrie says, I have the urge to watch Spartacus Blood and Sand again now. A great show. Indeed it was. Indeed it was. Daughters in Rome were very important. And when you took your daughter to a gladiator, this was not something that was like, oh, it's a torturous thing. No, they didn't treat them badly. They did not rough them up. This was something that was a family decision, if you will. Gladiators were popular with the ladies due to the legend of Maximus Mexicanus. God. Maximus Mexicanus. Interesting Mexican Iron Man. I am assuming that you are a descendant of the great Maximus Mexicanus.
There can be only one.
There can be only one. Highlander. Remember what Ramirez taught you. Oh, man. I love it. Absolutely love it. So, guys, we will be back next week, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the Colosseum. We're going to talk about the fall, why Rome fell. And we kind of know the answer to that, the mercenaries. They let go of their army, and they chose to hire mercenaries to protect the empire. And when
in Rome, do as the Vandals.
Yeah, they ran. They got paid and they ran. And Mexican Iron Man, the bloodline is pure.
Pure what, though?
Pure Maximus Mexicanus, apparently. And Derek McManus, a high risk, high reward profession. Yes. Now, guys, 2 weeks from today, Adega and I are going to do something a little different for October. We are going to cover some real stories that have some, how would you put it?
Supernatural, super scary, super deviant, odd, bizarre, grotesque, possibly.
And that is what we will be covering for the month of October. Thank you all so very much for being here. Colin P. Smith, Loki, amazing what one freezing river can do, isn't it? Yes. Yes, it is. And I'd like to thank Adega again for doing this with me. I absolutely love getting to do this and talk about history, talk about battles, talk about things.
You know, it's two friends getting together and we got a bunch of people hanging out with us.
Yep. Damn straight. So, guys, I will see you tomorrow morning. If you did not hear earlier, tomorrow at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time, I will be having a meetup on YouTube for Warriors of Asgard and Loki's personal army. It will be at 4 p.m. again, 4 p.m. Central Standard Time, and it'll be a Q&A, kind of like little party where you can ask Loki anything within reason. Start asking me what my social security number is, what my first dog was named, what's the first car I ever drove. You're shit out of luck.
I got in Mexican Iron Man's helmet in his headspace.
Oh, your words and have no effect to that. You know what I have to say to that, Adega?
No words whatsoever, I bet.
Oh, guys, thank you so very much. I hope you have a wonderful night. We will catch you all later. Since I ran the outro earlier today, I'm just going to hit you guys with some Kratos. Everyone have a great night, and we will catch you next time on 7 Kinds of Mischief.
Good night.
These videos are tremendous. Like, comment, and subscribe, and hammer that notification bell.